Hey everybody, welcome back to the Business of Boutique Fitness podcast. I'm your host today, Caroline, team captain of the Grow Your Studio Profitably program. I also own a yoga studio in Portland, Oregon, and I'm in the midst of opening up another multimodality and recovery focused studio also in Portland. So everything I talk about here, I'm living through and I'm coaching with my clients. Today, I am so excited to be talking to you about one of the most important aspects of your studio ownership journey, and that is your client journey. Now, part of why I love talking about client journey so much is that it's really intrinsically tied to every single piece of your studio. It is the key to your experience and creating a memorable and wonderful experience from that first interaction online all the way through to my membership journey with you. It also ties into my marketing, my brand, the way that my instructors interact with clients and deliver the service. Client journey really covers everything. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't even know what client journey is, don't worry. I have certainly talked to many owners just like yourself, and you probably have some form of a client journey in place. And now this is where we're going to start to strategically look at it and fine tune it. I've also found through my own studio ownership journey that client journey is one of my favorite places to live. I find in my current role in my studio, this is where I spend most of my time, really analyzing which touch points are working, which ones aren't working, where are people falling off. It becomes a bit of a game, a bit of a puzzle. So it's really fun. Now, let's dive in. If you're seeing people not coming in the door for that first class after they submit their contact form through your digital ad, or you're seeing people drop off after that first class, chances are you don't have a marketing problem like you may have thought. Chances are it's your client journey. The client journey is the way that we communicate with our clients, and it starts from that first impression, whether it's a flyer or an ad or a referral from an esteemed member, and it goes all the way through that membership journey. Now, we want to really clearly look at our client journey, and I like to break it into a few distinct parts. So we'll start with the pre-purchase journey, right? This is all of those nurture touch points that take us from that initial piece of brand awareness where I discovered that this studio even exists until I make that first purchase. And ideally, that first purchase is an intro package, but sometimes it's a drop-in. And you know what? We'll create our own membership and client journey for that drop-in to intro package. Then we'll look at that next phase. That's the intro journey. In this intro journey, and ideally we have an introductory package that is really set up to give clients a view of the studio and get them using the studio in the distinct way that we want them to. You know, if you have multiple modalities, this is really getting them to try each of the modalities. I think of my own studio, we have yoga and we have group fitness. And I look at someone who comes in on a yoga class, and my goal is to get you to take the group fitness class and vice versa. And then towards the end of that intro journey, we're really working on converting and using assumptive language to get you to join long term and find that membership. Then we come over to our membership journey, and the membership journey is long. Ideally, you're staying with us for a long time, and it can also be very multifaceted. So throughout a membership journey, we're looking at bringing in referrals, as those quality leads that come from our members are often some of our highest quality leads. We're also looking at soliciting Google reviews or reviews on our CRM or any other platforms to help our marketing and our brand awareness. We're also looking at, maybe implementing an at-risk process, making sure that our members are still reaching the goals that they set out to attain when they join for the first time. So let's start by looking into this question. Are you leading and strategizing behind your client journey, or are you winging it? Many of us are winging it when we start here, and this is a common problem I see in studios. So what I like to do with my own studio and with clients I'm working with is spend time each quarter to really look at what's working and what's not working. Now, for each phase of the journey, we want to have about 7 to 10 points of contact, and this will be a mix of automations, in-person touch points, even handwritten touch points. I think the power of a handwritten note put in the mail or put on your mat before a first class is unbelievably powerful. And I think also, something that many of us miss or overlook is utilizing our staff in the client journey. It doesn't need to be a dedicated salesperson who is making calls and making sales and overcome objections, though they for sure will play a part in your client journey. We can also have subtle pieces that play into the experience through our instructors, using a new member's name, checking in with them mid-class, saying, hey, I see you working really hard. I know this is new. Amazing. Keep going. going and making that intentional check-in after class. Every interaction with a client at any point in your journey is a reflection of your brand. And so I often urge clients before they start really diving into the language in their client journey to hone in on it and really refresh themselves on their mission, their vision, and values. There's likely a lot of studios in your area. How are you going to stand out from them? How are you going to speak directly to your client avatar? That has to come back to your unique selling proposition, and that's what we define in our mission, vision, and values. We talk a lot about client avatar, and it's such an important piece of your marketing and your client journey. You need to know exactly who you're trying to speak to in your studio and how they want to be spoken to, what really makes them tick, so that when they submit their contact information on your lead generation ad and they get that first email from your studio that's nurturing them to make the purchase towards that intro package, they are like, yes, this is the place for me. This studio gets me. I have to come in, buy that intro, get in class today. Now, if we break each phase and we really look at what's happening in each phase, let's start with the pre-purchase. So in that pre-purchase, again, this is someone who has not come into your studio. And I really urge you to look at the pre-purchase phase and what you consider a lead in a much broader context than you might already. A lead doesn't just have to be somebody who makes an account in your CRM and hasn't made that purchase yet. A lead could be somebody who walked in the studio door and was like, hey, what is this place? I've always walked by. I've never tried it. They're a lead. Let's get them tracked. Let's submit them into our journey. It could be someone who follows you on Instagram or Facebook. It could be, anyone, a community partner, a local business. All of these people are people we could sell to. And the goal in this pre-purchase journey, or when that lead comes into contact with me, is to get them into my CRM so that my automations can take off some of the work and I can be tracking which manual touch points need to happen. Now, if you're listening to this thinking automations, I don't have any of those. What are those? No worries. Stop here. We want to look at a mix of automations through email, text, and then those manual touch points, those phone calls and in-person touch points to create the perfect client journey. Most of our CRMs can handle a good degree of automations. If you find that your CRM is having trouble triggering on the specific conditions or touch points that you want it to, you might look into a third-party software to support and bolster the automations, because I think at the end of the day, automations are so key. That pre-purchase phase, when someone submits their contact information, I want to call them as soon as possible. Immediately, once they give me their name, their email, and phone number, I want an email going out. I want a very personalized text message going out from me, the studio owner. And I always like to break it down and think of those emails as more call to action driven, right? Purchase this in a very nice and informative tone, but also giving all of those frequently asked questions. And then I want the text messages, even if they're automated, to feel very personable, to use a lot of assumptive language and almost always end in a question. These texts I want to feel real. My favorite thing, and it happens often, is when I walk into my studio and someone says, "Oh, Caroline, I was just texting you." And I'm like, beautiful. I love that. It wasn't actually me. I don't say that. But I'm so glad to talk to you. That means the automation is working. And the way that we can solicit this response is, again, using that assumptive language, ending in a question. Hey, when's a good time to talk? I see you showed interest in starting yoga for the first time. I think also in this pre-purchase journey, something that we really need to remember is that hopping into a new studio for the first time is nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking for me. I go into studios all day, every day, and I am still nervous every time I go to a new one. We don't know what it's going to be like. Maybe the modality is new, or maybe the way that they teach this modality is new. I don't know what to expect. And so a lot of what I'm working towards in this pre-purchase journey is speaking to just that, right? It's okay to try something new. I want the text messages that prompt that response to highlight that as well. And this is where those manual touch points, which will typically be phone calls because we haven't seen this person in person yet, become really important. I always think too, a big pushback I get from owners is, why do I need to put phone calls in the journey? No one ever answers their phone. And I will say this, I have a very call-heavy client journey at my studio. I also happen to be a person who never answers my phone. But I think there is something powerful about a really great voicemail. I will always listen to the voicemail. I will always listen to the voicemail transcript and read that as well. And then when I see what this person is after, they're trying to bring me into the studio. They're trying to calm my nerves, to educate me on where I need to park, what I need to know, what's holding me back, learn about my goals. Chances are I'm going to pick up the next time, or I'm going to call them back. And if you think of all the studios you've been to, how many times have you been reached out personally like that? It's more than just a professional gesture. It's really going above and beyond to show, hey, I care. I see you. You probably came in here with some kind of goal, and I am here to help you reach that. And I think when we think of our pricing and we think of all these multi-layered things that come into, say, an intro package, the things that are going to set us above and beyond, especially in a crowded market, are those touch points, those little bits of hospitality that make this more than just a purchase, more than just a transaction for a service, and an experience, which at the end of the day is going to be more memorable and what we really want to deliver to our clients. So let's say we have implemented that pre-purchase journey and we're tracking it. Tracking this is key. I say this all the time. Maybe your CRM can handle lead tracking. Maybe you have a separate lead tracker. Maybe you're doing both. That's me, a little above and beyond there, classic. But if we aren't tracking what's happening in our client journey, it's really tough for us to strategize and say, hey, this touch point isn't working. I think we need to edit. Or maybe we need to add something in, or maybe it's too much, right? This becomes the data that we can base decisions off of. So say we get to touch point 3, I sent an email, a phone call, and a text message, and now I converted that lead into an intro package. Amazing. They're going to be filtered into another sequence, our intro journey sequence. And this one is fun. This one is about education. This is where someone gets to actually experience your studio for the first time. And more often than not, I find that the hardest part is getting people into the studio, but so many of us provide these amazing experiences, these unique experiences where movement and mental health and kind of an escape from everyday life and community intersect. And you know what you do best in your studio, so this is where you really want to speak to it. Be excited that people are coming in, welcome them. I think of that first email in an intro package client journey, really focus on here's all your burning questions, here's what you need to bring, here's where you need to park, here's this thing you need to know about our entrance, all of those good things. Another fun thing to do in your early stages of a client journey is, throw in some member testimonials. Maybe throw in that unassuming member who joined on an intro package last year and has come every day since. I have one of those in my studio, and that email performs amazingly well for us. And again, I also want to reach out via text and kind of solicit that prompt to do an intake. And when I do an intake, I'm really looking to talk person to person. I tell all of my staff at my studio who do these intakes that at the end of the day, this feels salesy. And if that's uncomfortable, that's okay. We're going to practice and we're going to get past that. But just remember, it's 2 people talking about yoga who love yoga, or whatever your modality is, right? You are passionate about this and it changed your life. And maybe this client sitting in front of you doesn't know how it could change their lives, but you're going to inform them on that, and you're going to come at it from an angle that really highlights their goals. Now, in this intro journey package, we really want to speak to each buyer type. We have the humanistic buyer type, which oftentimes is one of our prominent buyer types in the demographic we see in boutique fitness. And this is the type of person who needs those testimonials to purchase. And also note that testimonials can be great at any point in your client journey. With a testimonial, we want to show members, a diverse group of members, that capture your true client avatar, talking about why they love your studio, how it changed their lives, how it helped them reach their goals, why they can't leave without, have to come to your studio every single day. I have a really powerful testimonial in my client journey from a member. He is not our typical client avatar, but I kind of love that. And he joined on a whim. He had never done hot yoga before. He had never done yoga before, period. Ended up loving it, and he is now my top member. I recently did a challenge where I wanted people to come 30 times in 30 days, and he came 42 times. It is amazing. And in the testimonial I have in this client journey, he talks about how he went on a camping trip last summer, and he actually drove back to the studio to take class mid-camping trip because he could not go a week without hot yoga. Powerful testimonials like that are going to really speak to that humanistic buyer. We also want to touch base with the other types of buyers, the methodical buyer. This is the person that has a million questions and we need to answer them. Chances are you have answered a lot of the same questions in your studio. So you know what those frequently asked questions might be. Here's where you want to put them into an email, but instead of just spitting them into an email with bullet points and numbers, we want to really infuse your brand in it. Remember, this is where we tie your client avatar in. How do my people want to be spoken to? What makes them tick? How can I highlight the benefit, the value, and the uniqueness of my studio? During this time, these clients are also getting that real experience in your studio. So let's make sure that is exceptional as well. I think one of my favorite touch points in a client journey is the first class follow-up. And this is something that I don't see a lot of studios implementing on their own. This first class follow-up is that point where you check in, again, usually via phone call and text message after 24 hours and say, hey, it's me from the studio. I saw yesterday you took this class. How was it? How are you feeling? The goal of this is to create that person-to-person connection. Again, remember that this experience may have been brand new to this person. And I want to see if they're feeling sore, if they're feeling great. And really the goal of this is either to recommend a different type of class, get them trying more things in the studio, or simply booking them for their next class, and bonus points if you can pre-book them for the rest of the classes on their client journey. This is also another chance for you to really get to know the client and what they're after. All of these touch points early in the intro journey are going to help you immensely in selling a membership, because that is the goal. Conversion is the goal at the end of this. And it's really tough to sell a membership if we don't connect person to person and have that rapport built with this client. There are also buyer types that speak to urgency and need a lever or a little discount, maybe a fast acting discount to really speak to them and get them over the edge and make that jump to membership. And so this is where I look at the second half of our client journey. I might introduce all of our membership types in an earlier point in the client journey. Maybe if we're thinking a 2-week intro, I'm going to introduce this at the end of week 1. And I want you to be really mindful here. Many of us have a number of different pricing options, and this is where you want to look at what your most popular memberships are. Again, assumptive language is powerful. Hey, most of our clients are seeing the most benefit or reaching their goals with 3 classes a week, and here's a membership to support that. It's our 12-time-a-month membership. This is where you also offer and distinguish the differences between a shorter-term contract and a longer-term contract. What difference does it make if I stay for a full year with this studio versus 3 months? And speaking to more than just maybe the financial differences, but the way that your clients will feel if they try your modality for a full year and really commit. And I think this is also a chance for you to highlight the ways that you uniquely support and offer accountability to your clients. And maybe in the back of your head that's through your automated at-risk process, but they'll feel like it's coming direct from you. So now we've laid out our membership types. Here's a really pivotal point in the client journey. Ideally at this point, the client has tried a few different classes. You can see, wow, they love the 6 a.m.s, or they're a noon, middle of day workout goer. So here's where we want to prescribe the membership. And again, many CRMs can handle automating this, but I think it's also great to bring this in a manual touch point. Looking at how the client used the studio, what types of classes they're using, what you know about those initial contact points with them, so you can make a full membership prescription. Again, we sent that email where we talked to them about the different membership types we have, and maybe we also linked to our pricing page. Maybe when we went to that pricing page, we found that the client got a bit of decision fatigue of like, oh man, I really want to do this Pilates class long term, but I don't know which membership is for me. And this is where you jump in to save the day. You say, hey, I've seen the way you've been using the studio, and I know our 8-time-a-month membership is perfect for you. And at this point, I'm also going to drop a slight lever. Hey, I would love to see you join for the next the next 12 months. And if you do, I'll give you X% off your first month on a membership, right? Giving them a little nudge to get them to the membership. That is our goal. Now with these levers, again, we want to speak to that urgent buyer type. So I'm going to put a timeline on it, a little deadline, a little urgency and scarcity can really help in the sales process. So maybe I say, if you join by the end of your intro package, you can utilize this discount. This becomes a really strong offer and really, again, speaks to that urgent buyer type. Now, here's also the point where you might start to encounter some objections. And don't be scared of the objections. In fact, I highly recommend that you rehearse and role play these objections with your team every week, every month, more often than you think you need to. And know that often any objection you get, whether it's a financial, it's a time objection, it's an accountability objection, it's often not what you think it is at first. So we build rapport with the clients in the early phase of the journey so that we can start to push back and ask those maybe more uncomfortable or personal questions when we get to this point of making the sale. If I know that, you want to lose weight, but I know it's deeper than that. I know you want to feel confident. I know you want long-term health and you want to be able to run around with your grandkids in 20 years. That's something I can speak to in overcoming this objection, whether it's accountability or time. This is something and where we really start to personalize the journey to nurture and fit the client. So let's say we win the client over, we close the deal, we get them on a membership, we celebrate. Now, this is too often where I see studios stopping the journey. And here's the thing to remember. It's a lot of work to convert a lead to an intro, and it's a lot of work to convert an intro to a membership. It's a lot less work to keep a member happy long term. So let's keep that member journey going. And when we look at member journey, I really want you to start your focus on the first 90 days. Create a true onboarding, just as you would with any new employee, right? Again, refresh goals. Make sure that the client is using the studio in the manner that they set out to when they came in on that intro. Oftentimes we find that new rhythm, we start taking class for a couple weeks and then life happens and we fall off grid and now I have to get re-engaged. Again, a lot easier to just keep them engaged long term if they never fall off in the first place. In this member journey, I also really want to focus on having them bring friends in. For a number of reasons. Like I said earlier, those referrals tend to be our highest quality leads. And ideally, our members are our brand ambassadors. They can speak to why they absolutely love this studio and it does not compare to any other studio in your town. But these referrals also bring in accountability. And we talk about that kind of drop off in usage that many of us can experience. Studies show it's a lot easier to stick to something new if you have a friend to do it with. So let's bring a friend in. Maybe you have an amazing referral link that you can nurture clients with in your CRM. Or maybe you offer a special deal, a buddy pass on a long-term membership, or maybe even a buddy pass on your intro. Let's make sure to get those referrals booked in. And what I also want to look at in the first, couple months of that member journey is soliciting Google reviews. Hey, you joined the studio, you clearly like us for some reason, please share it. It helps us a lot. When we look at a member journey, again, we focus on those first 90 days and have some more heavy touch points in that time. And then we space it out to about once a month. If we're running on contracted renewals, we might start bringing in our renewal process towards the end of, 45 days out from renewal of this membership. And then I look at a couple of kind of ancillary client journeys that we have in our studio. One being a win back, speaking to those clients that maybe never made that initial purchase in your CRM, right? They came in a pre-purchase and they never actually took that class. Well, our pre-purchase journey only goes so far, so we'll have to pick them up in that win-back journey later. This could also speak to those intros who never converted to a membership, or those members or class package holders who eventually fell off. And ideally, this doesn't happen, and I do find that when studios implement a win-back journey and a true win-back, those people that have fallen off do tend to dwindle, and we have a more engaged clientele. But again, this looks like a mix of emails, text messages, personal contact points. And again, the more that we are detailing out, taking notes, keeping notes on every interaction with clients, the easier it's going to be to go above and beyond in this win-back sequence and speak to exactly what that client or that lead came into your studio hoping to get the first time they came in. Now, a little hot tip on this win back, we may have these automations filtering in the backgrounds at all times in the studio, and you may also find yourself at key points in the year. I often think of August or September when we're all falling back into our routines, and January when the new year, new me mentality is quite high, as a great time to do an intentional win back campaign, like a full monthly focus. And if you have a list of hot leads, those intros that you swore would convert to membership but didn't, or the members that have fallen off, the class package purchasers who you couldn't convert to a membership or onto another package, this is your chance to call those hot leads. Having 20 to 30 hot leads per campaign is such a great idea. And the more notes you have, the better. If I send out an automated email to my entire list, but I can follow up with a, hey, so-and-so, I haven't seen you in a while. I thought this deal would be perfect for you. I remember you were really looking to create an escape and get away from it all for an hour a week. Could I interest you in this deal? It'll go really far. And then last phase of the journey that I look at is an at-risk process, right? Speaking to those members or package holders who have an active package, an active subscription with you, but haven't been in a while. If we look at cancellations, oftentimes the number one indicator of a member wanting to cancel is that they haven't been using their membership in the way they have. And I think this is a chance for us to reflect on our own practices, our own wellness practices that can often fall to the side when life gets busy. And this is just what you're doing here. We're reminding them of why they joined, and we're making sure they want to stay engaged and with us long term. So there you have it. That's your client journey. And again, I say put all of these in place, have a way to track it, and make sure that each quarter you're looking at what's working, what's not working. Look at your CRM for unsubscribe rates or open rates. Look at your notes to see when people are falling off or when they're really responsive. Make edits as needed and really let your client journey be a reflection of your studio's brand, your mission, vision, and values, and lead people from that awareness stage all the way to the stage where they've been a happy member with you for years and years. Thanks again for joining me. It's been great to chat with you about client journey. I'll catch you on the next one.